Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the next panel. We've got a power-packed panel for you guys up next. The discussion topic is renovation of golf courses, and we have firstly Jeff Lawrence, golf course architect from based in US, part of the Gary Player design team. Worked on obviously multiple golf courses all around the world, including Delhi Golf Course, the DLF, as well as Grade 1. Then we have Mr. Sameer Sinha, uh, who's the MD for Kensville Golf Club, a pioneer in real estate-centric golf course development in the country. Promoter for one of the first and the best golf course real estate developments in Ahmedabad. We have Mr. John Thomas, ex-captain from Trivandrum Golf Club, who even after his retirement as captain remains as passionate as anybody I've ever seen about the club. And we have Mr. Rohit Sabharwal, ex-captain of Delhi Golf Course, the man who was behind the renovation project for the Lodi Golf Course at the Delhi Golf Club. So welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I'll start off with Mr. Sameer Sinha, if I can. I sir, would just like to ask to start with, Ahmedabad has suddenly over the last 8, 10 years become a hub for golf and golf development. But when you started off with your project many years ago, I'm sure hardly anybody in Ahmedabad knew what golf was. So what was the idea behind the project? What was the thought process back then? What was the vision?
Thank you, Vijit, and thank you for the opportunity. Glad to be part of this panel. So yeah, I don't know what prompted us. It was, I guess, just pure passion, which is what always happens with any project that you get into. And what has essentially made it successful is what I can tell you about, is what started off as purely a passion project. But the few things that we did right was that it was a real estate play. It was not necessarily just a golf course. So from the very beginning, we knew that we were building a real estate community around a golf course, because the business model always was that to sustain the golf course, we will need a sound financial model. But the one decision that we made from the very first day was that we do not want to compromise on the golf course. So we definitely wanted to build a championship golf course. We dedicated enough land to it. We dedicated enough resources to it from the very first day. And we just made sure that the model was robust to last us for decades to come, where we would not have to compromise either on the OPEX or the CAPEX. I mean, the CAPEX that we had budgeted for, or the OPEX of the course over the years. So that was really what was what I call the sustainable way of building a golf course. But we were fortunate that we had the land. We could acquire the land that we wanted. We have dedicated almost 140 acres to the golf course, and then built a community around it. So that worked out well for us. That was the basic model. And you're right, when we did this, we were the only 18-hole championship course in Gujarat. We now have quite a few. And we were very fortunate to have worked with people like Colonel Bagga. And then we were very, very fortunate to have Jeev Milkha Singh on board. And it was his first signature course in the country. So we got really lucky with all of that. And that really put us on a platform and a pedestal on the national scene. And I guess there's no looking back since then. And now Ahmedabad, you're rightly said, is quite a golfing hub. There are several very good golf courses, championship courses, at least 2 championship 18-hole courses in Ahmedabad. There are almost a dozen courses now in Gujarat. Not all of them are of the same caliber, but quite a few of them are very good.
Well, thank you, sir. We'll come back to you on that.
Sure.
The quality of the golf course, I think, speaks for the kind of team that you had working with you. I think it's one of the most unique and picturesque golf courses that I've seen, full of character. So if I can move to Mr. Rohit Sabharwal now, sir. You were the captain of Delhi Golf Course when the Lodi Golf Course renovation was done. And it took, I think, 35 years. That was the last time when the renovation was done. So if I may ask you, obviously Delhi Golf Course with its multiple committees and a big membership, everything takes time. But why do you think it took so long for the Delhi Golf Course to take a decision to renovate the golf course? And why did it happen when it did 2-3 years back?
Well, Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for this opportunity. It's good to be a part of this panel, and it's good to know that your organization is doing the kind of work that you're doing at the core level, rather than just a PR exercise, which a lot of other organizations are doing, and with backslapping and just talking and not serving any particular purpose. So I feel for it. I feel for what you guys are doing, and you're doing it at the grassroots level, which is very, very important. And that's what it is. So coming back to why the Delhi Golf Club took so long, and I think it was a series of issues related to the greens, series of issues related to not the overall layout, because we are pretty, it's like it's a scary layout. I mean, you've got jungles all both sides, and the only thing we're missing is water hazards. But so I think it was a series of stuff that happened to the greens, and we kind of came to a decision that we will not be going to the next level unless we do something about it immediately. And I think we had one late Mr. Siddharth Shriram Chiku, as he was very well known. I think he was the driving force behind it, and because of that, we really kind of, the momentum built, and he kind of made it seem simple. That look, this is what you need to do. You need to take decisions. However, as committees go and as things happen, it took a little time. It took two committees to really, to put your head down and say, look, let's do it. And once we took that decision, then it was up to our president, Major R.S. Bedi, and myself to really kind of carry it through. And we kind of did it in such a way that uh, we were very proactive, and we were very kind of aggressive with the timelines and everything else. We spoke to the membership. We communicated well. We had Jeff Lawrence come over for a interaction with the membership. So it was all kind of packaged in a well, and we worked very hard towards it, to achieving that aim. So I'll come back with more later, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your kind words on the association, sir. Like we know it's a small association, but we do try and promote the game of golf and do what we can, for the promotion of the golf on grassroots level. Thank you so much for that. So now continuing the discussion with Delhi Golf Course, I'll move on to Jeff. Fantastic background, I must say firstly, behind you. And so
Thank you.
you're the designer for the renovation of the Delhi Golf Course, Lodi Golf Course. So for the audience, Jeff, if you can start off by telling us, as a golf architect, what your thought process is when you go about such a project. What the concept was for the Delhi Golf Course renovation project overall.
Well, we started out. It started out as a greens total green renovation, not renovation, actually redesign. So, trying to maximize the existing lay of the land, but also improve the technical aspects of the greens from a structural standpoint, technical standpoint. So, we went about it trying to create variety, trying to keep the settings of the greens intact, but going to that next level and doing some grading, adding and taking away bunkering. So, it really was a process, as Rohit mentioned, that we go about it in a systematic way to make sure there's plenty of variety. It was a design brief to make it a championship golf course. So we did create a lot of strategy as we went through the process. But I think the benefits from a design perspective and a technical perspective is really shows today in the quality of the greens and the feedback that we're getting from a playability standpoint.
No, absolutely, Jeff. And just what do you think is the biggest change that has been made with the redesign to the overall golf course? Obviously, the strategy has improved tremendously on certain holes, but overall, feature-wise, what do you think is the biggest improvement over what you had initially?
Well, definitely it's the green complexes. We totally redesigned the green complexes. So the green shapes, green sizes, green orientations, contouring around the green complex. All 18 holes were touched, and not in a small way. It was a total redesign. So that would be the biggest. I would say the second is, just the technical aspects to improve the overall quality of the golf course. Turf conditions on tees, fairways, green surrounds, and that was due to irrigation updates. We also included additional strategy and improve the strategy off the tee by moving and adjusting and modifying some of the bunkers in the fairways. So, but to answer your question, it was definitely the green complexes.
Right, and that's clear to see. Yesterday, during one of the panel discussions, that you'll find it interesting to hear. They were talking about golf course maintenance practices, and with mini birdie on the greens now, there was a talk of increasing green speeds to. Somebody suggested that Delhi golf course should increase their green speeds to 12.5, 13. And I was like, that'll be a great, a crazy, scary thought of putting, on those greens when they're running at 13. So, yeah, but they're playing really well now. So if I can move on to Mr. John Thomas, sir, you...
Just to let you know, we actually did 12. We went up to 12 in the summer.
I think around there, we parted 7 or 8 greens there, if I'm not mistaken. Must have been there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, John, sir, you've been ex-captain for Trivandrum Golf Club for a number of years. And obviously, the golf course is under a renovation right now. I would know since I'm the consultant there. But if it's an old historic golf club, even I don't know too much about the history of the club. So if you can tell us, I think it'll be fascinating for everybody to know old historic golf course like Trivandrum Golf Club.
Good evening, everyone. So actually, we go back to 1850, around that 1850, 1860. This was actually, this property belonged to the Maharaja of Travancore. It was basically his hunting lodge, and subsequently it became a golf course for his guests and friends from abroad who used to come and play golf. And in fact, I've got some very interesting photographs of the people in the attire of those days, and the caddies carrying the golf bag with dhotis, and amazing photographs of very old photographs. But the actual fact is, Colonel G.V. Raja, we have a letter dated 20 June 1966, where he referred to the course as being more than 100 years old, around 100 years old. That is one part of the history. The other major issue that we have in Kerala is shortage of land. You won't believe we are right in the heart of Trivandrum city with just 25 acres. It's a 9-hole course, 25 acres. We somehow squeeze through, play our golf every morning. And with all the politicians and when I say politicians, I mean every political party. Every political party is looking for this prime land in the heart of the city. So we were sitting ducks for the very powerful political parties. They were trying to shunt us out 50, 60 kilometers away. Anyway, to cut the short court, got a stay. And eventually in 2010, we went to the Supreme Court. We said, come what may, let's go to the Supreme Court. It cost us a lot of money. And we won the case in the Supreme Court. The only club that took the state government, the property belongs to the state government. The only club where the members took the state government to court and won a case in the Supreme Court. And that's how it stands today. So finally, the Supreme Court said, let the government do the upkeep and maintenance, you play. 600 members have the right to play golf. But then eventually what happened is they wouldn't maintain the place. And finally, we came down to a state where many golfers stopped playing because the conditions were getting very bad. So finally, we thought of a brilliant idea. We had one of our Kerala IAS officers who was heading Sports Authority of India in Delhi at that time. So we spoke to him and said, why don't you come and why don't Sports Authority of India take over the golf club? So we'll get the political people off our back. So eventually that happened, and now the course is being run by the Sports Authority of India. Of course, the members are there. It's we don't get any money from the government. We are all self-funded, and few years ago we got some money from the government, from the tourism department, government of India, to upgrade the course, and that's how Golf Design India, Mr. Vijit Nandajog, is right now on the job of the upgradation, which I think should be over by the end of next month. So that is a brief problematic area that we had during the initial years. But there's some very interesting. You see, we have a clubhouse. It's a pagoda-shaped clubhouse built around 1893. Absolute fantastic architect. And you can sit in that clubhouse any time of the day. You don't really need a fan. You get a cross ventilation both this way, that way. Any time of the day, you can sit in the clubhouse. Then the other thing is, see, we had there's a person by the name of John Douglas Rolland, who was a professional Scottish golfer, who was the runner-up twice in 1884 and 1894 for the British Open. The Maharaja had actually hired him to come and teach golf in India. That is, according to them, it says there's an article in the Scotland News article on 15th October 1895 and 25th November 1895, which states that the Maharaja had requested for the guidance of Douglas Rolland to teach golf in India for a fee of £350 a year. Amazing history. I mean, this is what I got from the net. Basically, we are in a part of the country which has tremendous rainfall. It starts on June 1st and goes on till December, sometimes even into January. So we've got we are a Trivandrum city of 7 hills. So there's a lot of topography problem, a lot of topsoil leaching. So we had a real big issue because a lot of areas became laterite because of the topsoil leaching. And Vijit actually made a lot of low points. I see I'm already seeing the change now. A lot of lush grass has come up. Of course, we've gone for native grass for the fairway, because I don't know whether the high-tech grasses will survive the Kerala monsoon. The Kerala monsoon can be very severe, and sometimes it rains for 20, 30 days on the run without a break. And you can also have another 30 days of dry weather. So that's the unpredictable nature of the weather pattern today. It's all over the world, but then Kerala also is affected.
No, I think we made the right call using the native turf there, sir, for sure. What was going to be more sustainable in the long run. We'll come back to you, sir. If I can go to Samir, sir, again. Sir, your project being a real estate centric project, if you could just give an idea to the audience of how the golf course has actually added value to the overall project. Because the overall project, I think, has been enhanced by the golf course. The overall atmosphere there is quite unique.
No, so Vijit, this entire project was envisioned as a residential community around the golf course. There would have been no community if there was no golf course. So those two are very integral to each other, and from the very beginning, and which is key to any new golf course that would be built in the country privately, is that how will you sustain the course? Because obviously green fees do not sustain a golf course, especially in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So the entire project was designed as a holistic project which will have the residences around the golf course, and that will sustain the subscriptions. And the other thing that we did from the very beginning was to build a a small hotel and a country club on the course, which by itself was designed in a way where we could have events, weddings, conferences, which would not disturb the golf course, which was designed on the campus, but not obstructing the course in any way. And because this kind of integrated design, there are several revenue sources that we have on the facility, which feeds into supplements our expenses for the golf course. So that is how it was designed. And like I said before, because the golf course was designed with the residential community in mind from the very first day, we could also phase the project in a way where we could maximize returns over the years. So the entire project was planned in phases. We had obviously higher value for the golf facing facilities and slightly more affordable value for the non-golf facing plots of land that we had on the campus. So that was how it was planned out. And we had, I guess we got really lucky that we were able to think ahead in those years. This is almost 15 years ago, that the model was such that we have enough. We have developed only about 40% of the entire campus still. We still have a long way to go. And hopefully for years to come, the model will be sustainable.
Absolutely, sir. I think one very good point about the overall the project that you have, although there's the project has been developed and designed in a cohesive way with the real estate and golf. I feel spectacular views from the resort and from the real estate of the golf. But at the same time, when you're playing or walking the golf course, you don't really see too much of real estate. You know what I mean? It's the atmosphere when you're out on the golf course is not like you're playing between real estate villas and housing. So that's fantastic, and I think that's a highlight of your golf course overall.
So let me just add to that, just one line on that, is something that we mandated from very first day, that we will not cut trees. So even on the course, we have had to cut barely less than half a dozen trees totally. Wow. And we make it a point to plant at least 30 to 40,000 trees every year. So the entire experience is almost like playing on a jungle course. And you're right, you don't see there are hundreds of houses, but you don't get to see the houses unless you're right in front of them because of the number of trees that we have on campus.
Right. Certain holes actually feel as if you're playing somewhere in Malaysia or Thailand with the rain, inside the.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So, Rohit sir, if you've been part of probably the biggest renovation or upgradation that has been done in the country in the last 5-7 years. As the captain, you were involved in on a day-to-day basis. I saw that personally. You were there at the office on Delhi Golf Course office on a daily basis. So, what do you think? What, in your opinion, you think is some of the more key aspects that you need to keep in mind for a golf club of your size? If you have your golf course would start a renovation project, what are the key aspects that have that play important role in the planning and execution of such a project of this scale?
I'll give you a little bit of just a 2-line background. When it was under discussion, we talked about doing it over 2 seasons, doing 9 holes and 9 holes. And here were 2 bulls, Major Bedi and myself, who said, what were you talking about? We'll do it in 1 year. And then we talked to Jeff, we talked to a couple of other people, and we said, listen, we're going to do it in 1 year. So we broke ground on the 5th of March, 4th of March. And in October, we had opened 9 holes. In November, we opened the course. So, so I think all of it had to do with, we had a core committee which was looking after it, after the construction. We emphasized on logistics, the materials, testing, economic and the ecosystem and the long-term objectives. We're now setting up an STB plant, which we are tapping the sewage plant, and we're going to treat that water, which will give us probably 1 million liters of water a day. So, and the other, I think, most important thing was the decision making. It was well-informed and practically implementable decisions. I think, we had a lot of support from Theo and from Jeff, because we were in touch so much, and we just knew that, okay, we've taken a call, let's do it, that kind of thing. The biggest debate I want to point out here was the USGA versus Californian system of greens, because our main project was the greens. We did 20 greens. I mean, Vijit said 18, but actually we did 20. But 2 were the large practice greens, and they're huge. I mean, the practice greens that we've now come up with are huge. So this debate about USGA and California kept going on, raging for a while. We tried to put things to rest, because we figured out that there is no such thing as modified USGA. You know, if you don't have the materials which the USGA specifies, it is not USGA. It's as simple as that. I mean, it is maybe your home concocted story, but it is not USGA unless you have the specific materials that USGA specifies. So we decided in our wisdom, and of course in consultation with Jeff, with Mr. Gary Player, with DLF, uh, that California was the way to go. So that's what we did. Now, I would recommend that when you go in for a planning of any such thing like this, don't just have a plan B, have a plan C as well, because a lot of things can go wrong or can go off schedule. You know, despite your planning. I mean, the ground conditions could turn out to be different when you excavate. Something else could happen, you know. So it does always happen. And I think Theo was brilliant. Jeff, if you'll agree with me, I'm sure Theo was absolutely brilliant. He was the South African guy who did DLF, and I don't think anybody believed that we would get the job done in 6 months. Not the Delhi Golf Club. I'm sorry to say this, but not the Delhi Golf Club. 6 months would never be impossible. So I think you've got to look at disruption of play. You've got to look at the season that you're doing it in. Just as Mr. Thomas just said, you know, the Kerala monsoons are crazy. So that means the only other time to do it is off season. But off season is the time when people want to play golf. So we were fortunate that we started it March when it was just about getting very warm. Our disadvantage was we didn't have a nursery, we didn't have the grass. We were in the process of sorting it out. We did eventually, with a lot of help from again, we will go back to Jeff and Theo. So we managed to do that, and I think the end of it, we've produced a pretty good golf course, and it's a very high level and very high quality. I must say, at the end of it, everybody's playing 4 to 5 strokes off their old handicaps. So, including Vijay, don't laugh, Vijay, but including you. He came and played 7 over one day, and he says, "I've got to come back and beat it." So it's a tougher course now. It's a tougher layout. I mean, it's still got the tightness of the Delhi Golf Club. It's got amazingly challenging greens now. And yeah, it was great working with Jeff and Theo on the project. I'm glad we sorted it out. And to the credit of our then president, Major Billy Bedi, who we and I did our term together, was the fact that we set up 2 independent core groups. One was to look after the construction of the course, which was headed by me, and the other was a fundraising group. Just like Mr. Thomas said, we don't have any funding. We have our own funding to look at. We don't get anything from the government. We maintain 179 acres in the heart of Delhi. And so that committee actually raised enough money to pay for the renovation. Again, it was Chiku, the late Siddharth Shriram's idea. It was implemented beautifully, and we've got the proof of the pudding is, please come and play. I'd love to love to invite any of you to come and play, please. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. I think the 2 key things that you pointed out, sir, obviously Jeff, Theo, the team that you guys put together, and very early on, you had the right people with you since the planning stage. You know, that's I felt was very, very, very important. And the second thing that I was shocked to see was how you managed to stock all the materials even before the construction started. You know, nobody could imagine you could store so much sand on site. You know, that was very, very important to execute the project in 1 year, in 6 months, not 1 year.
Some statistics. We brought in about 260 tons of sand. We started buying it in January. You know, so it was just kind of stocking up because we knew the processes took that long. We wouldn't have been able to utilize, because the main ingredient was sand. I mean, come on, for the greens, you need to sieve it, you need to dry it, and make sure it's consistent, and and it's 14 inches of sand, which is then compacted down. So just to give you an idea of the logistics, and we're talking about The playable area of the Lodi course being about 140 odd acres. So that's a lot of land. And then added to that came the other thing, the fairway improvements, the fairway bunker improvements, the drainage, the water, the irrigation. Just give you an information that yesterday it rained 131 mm in Delhi, 131 in one day, right?
140 plus today, sir. It was
Just across the whole day, 131 mm. It's, if you can see beyond the mirror, it's dark and cloudy even now, beyond the window pane. But earlier in the season, one evening or one day, it rained 72 mm. One day, one evening. Next day, the course is open for play. But tomorrow it may not be open because 130 mm is a hell of a lot of rain, and it's just crazy. But we did a lot with the drainage as well. It was it was Theo's idea and Major Bedi's idea that we just drill into the ground, create the infrastructure for the water to kind of go down, and you recharge the groundwater level. At the same time, you sort out your drainage. So all you got to do is flush that system once or twice a year, and you're good to go. And you're increasing the water table, which is very important for us in Delhi, where in most localities the water table is down to about 250 feet. We have water at 20 feet, right? In most fairways we have water in 20 feet. In some fairways it's about 15 feet, 14, 15 feet. So that's again, it's like working together. It's like collaborating and making sure that you have everything working for you.
Yeah, and the drainage solution, I think,
Plan B and Plan C's, please.
and also the drainage solution, I thought, so was very creative, especially when you can't have a pond inside Delhi golf course due to whatever restrictions you have. That was probably the best that could have been done in terms of drainage solutions.
So just as I mentioned the STP, what we're doing now is that we have border golf links on one side, and we've got government permission to tap that water. So it's actually going to convert that, purify that sewage water, treat it, and we are looking at setting up another pumping station, augment the existing pumping station, which will feed into the existing lines, so that there is no. I mean, Delhi is dry. I mean, Delhi is absolutely dry sometimes, and for a major part of the year when you need to have that irrigation. So we kind of supplementing things. So we will have that additional capacity, so to speak. Yeah, and we're not reliant. Then we're not relying on the existing, for the quality and for the quantity. That's what it.
Right, fantastic, sir. Thanks so much. So Jeff, let me ask you. You've obviously worked around the world, with the guide player team and independently. You've worked in India also in the past at DLF and Grade 1. But those were private projects, one owner. So how different was it working in India at a golf club, like Delhi Golf Course with a big membership and so many committees? So how different was the overall process for you?
Well, the process really wasn't that different from other projects that I've been involved with. Obviously, it had a couple committees, but, looking at, doing projects around the world, whether it's renovation or new, there's always a group of people that, whether you're starting from scratch or it's a renovation, it's a team effort. As Rohit said, nobody can do it by themselves. So, collectively engaging ownership and committees and experts in their field of profession, that was the key, as Rohit said, to the success of the Delhi Golf Club project. It was the prior planning up front. It was the team that was put together. It was the foresight and the outside the box thinking that, I was a little skeptical to try to get this done in 6 months because I thought that was going to sacrifice some quality, but everything fell into place because of the team that we put together. And that, once again, that's membership, that's meetings, that's committees, that's people on the ground, that's shapers, that's everybody working together for a common common goal to deliver a championship 5-star international product that that's going to last for a long time because it was done the right way.
Right. And Jeff, if I may ask, like when you remodeling a golf course, renovating a golf course like the Lodi course, which is very popular. People, the membership have a lot of attachment to certain features there. So as a designer, how do you balance that out? How do you how do you go about your business, if I must say, just going about the overall concept, what you want to retain on a particular property and what needs changing. So on a golf course like the Delhi golf course, obviously there were a lot of vegetation, a lot of trees on the course. That was a restriction. But a lot of old features where a lot of membership I thought had some attachment to certain things, which were there. They've been playing the same golf course for a number of years. So how do you balance that out when you're making changes? You're making big drastic changes, but still keeping the character or the soul of the golf course intact.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's so important for the architect up front from day one to listen to the client and to understand what is the vision and the goal and the objectives of the club, whether it's a country club or individual owner or whatever the case. The architect needs to listen, what are the objectives, and then work with the team to develop concepts and ideas as far in the bigger picture. And then mold that into more definitive and specific design concepts and features. So, it was very clear what Delhi Golf Club wanted, through meetings, through countless meetings, up front before we even started, and concepts and ideas. And, once we hit the ground running, it was, we couldn't stop. So there was plenty of thought put into it. It's always a challenge. I would say for most architects, it is for me, is to try to design a golf course that is user friendly for the higher handicap, but also very challenging for the better players. And that's the goal that, on every design that I'm involved with, that's, always in the back of my mind. How do we get and have the average player, the junior, the super senior, enjoy the golf experience, but also can host a professional European tour event. And I think we've done a nice job at Delhi Golf Club that, as Rohit said, it's playing harder, but I think the average member can still get around and enjoy it. And I'm sure the higher handicappers enjoy the challenge as long as it's not unfair. And I don't think it's unfair by any means, because of the things that we implemented during the design process.
Sure, absolutely. Like Rohit sir said, I played the golf course 2 days in a row, shot 5-6 over my handicap the first time. And the very next day went to under my handicap, so when I figured out how to bounce balls around certain green complexes, etc. So it goes on to show, the strategy there is there. Once you understand what you need to do around the green complexes, you can score well,
Mm-hmm.
So that's the entire, goal, I think, from your perspective.
Well, I think that's, we added quite a bit of strategy to the golf course, whether that was the angles of the greens, contours, bunker placement. So, I'm glad to hear what you just said is, it's something that, it's going to play different every day. And that's about the enjoyment of the game and variety. So, depending on where pin placements are, where you hit your drive, it's all thought about strategically, believe it or not, on paper and mind. And, we make changes in the field, it's trying to work within the parameters of the tree lines because we couldn't touch the trees. It was definitely a fast-paced project, and I learned quite a lot, because if you don't learn on every project, then you're missing out. But it was a great experience and a great team that was put together.
Okay, thanks so much, Jeff. Samir sir, one thing I want to ask you is, the Kenswell Golf Club is the only Jeev Milka Singh signature golf course in the country. So how did that come about, and how did that happen? How did Jeev get involved in the project?
Yeah, so all that is all thanks to Colonel K.D. Bagga. He was the one who was instrumental in getting us introduced to Jeev. And I was pleasantly surprised when we discussed the idea of doing a signature course in Ahmedabad. Jeev was very, very open to the idea. And I think he brought great value to the course. He said something very interesting when we were designing the course. And this was a couple of fairways had already been built when he came on board. And he said, it's very easy to make a difficult course. It's difficult to make an easy course. And he says, you want to build a course which members can go home feeling good about their game, and then be able to tweak it just enough to make it into a championship course for the 4th day of the final tournament. So, and that's what we ended up doing. So he actually made us, we had made it actually a little bit too difficult when we were planning it, just in the excitement of making an interesting course. And he actually made it a little more easier for the club golfer, for the regular member to come in and get a good round of golf and win some money before going home. And which was very, very valuable, I think, which has really added to the value. It is a tight course, as you've seen it. It's a long course, one of the longest in the country, and we are surrounded by trees. So you cannot really go left or right too much. So if you're getting penalized for a good shot, then that's not a good thing on a course like this. So which is really valuable. What Jeev was able to add was very, very insightful and very good, which has stayed with us all this time.
And although you said Jeev made it easier, it's not an easy golf course.
Well, then you can imagine how bad it was then.
It's not an easy golf course. Most the qualifying school for the PGTA, you've been for a number of years, and the feedback from the pros is it's a enjoyable golf course, but extremely difficult also.
No, but so what Jeff said is very, very interesting also about this course. The same thing is the strategy. You play the first time, you find it difficult, but as you play a little more, it's all about course management. You will use every club in the kit on this course, and it is all about course management, pretty much like VGC, I guess.
Right, lovely. So John sir, very quickly, we've almost run out of time. Just with the updations that are happening at Trivandrum, you've got an interesting golf course and an interesting setup with the SAI involvement there also. So overall, what do you think are the biggest changes that are going to happen to your golf course, and how has the involvement of SAI helped that out also overall?
Well, the only issue that I am a little worried about, there are a lot of people who are coming and seeing the course right now. There's a big rush for membership. And I think we are going to have a real tough time in controlling the crowds coming in.
Well, that's nice to hear. That's a good problem to have.
It wasn't a problem we had earlier. We had about 25, 30 people playing in the morning, a few people, and same 30, 40 come in the afternoon. But I think right now I saw 5, 6 youngsters, young girls coming in. I asked them, was it because of Aditi Ashok? He said, yes, we saw her, So this is bound to happen. And I'm only a little worried whether we can fit everyone into a small course like us.
Right.
I suppose we have to give way to the youngsters coming in.
We must, sir. I'm sure you'll manage somehow. Right, gentlemen, thank you so much. We've run out of time. We could have gone on, I'm sure, for the next hour or so also. It's such a power-packed panel. But thank you so much for your time. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jit. Appreciate it. Thank you.